Hey, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the huge technical delays that we've been having today. Welcome into Ask the Night tonight. My name is Annora, and of course we have Effin and John and the tech guys backstage. Tonight we have Sir Conall, and we also have Sir Kaz. Gentlemen, thank you guys so much for dealing with the madness and the chaos, and thank you guys so much for agreeing to come on the show tonight. We're really excited to get you guys on, and sorry to everybody in the audience for the also technical difficulties of scheduling. Mundane life comes first. Jobs are what allow us to do what we do. So very glad we got to get started tonight. Gentlemen, how are we going to do this? Apologies for that shakeout. Is going to ask you guys questions, going to give you answers, and hopefully some of our lovely audience in the out there are going to give us questions that are going to really make you guys think. Maybe not be so uncomfortable, but just give you the hard questions nobody ever thinks about asking in the anonymity of being in Facebook. Okay, here we go. Sir Conall, if you don't mind going first, can you give us a little bit about yourself, your name, where you're from? Who are you?
Well, I started in the SCA back in late 82, early 83 down in Caid. Myself and a group of people, we started a canton in our hometown, Gala Valley in the Barony of Drybergen. And I was 14 when I found the SCA. And so the trick there was you couldn't fight in a tournament in Caid unless you were 18. So a lot of practice. Turned 16, and me and a handful of other teenagers went to the Barons War in Edenvelt and got authorized there because you could get authorized when you were 16. And so we could fight at Barons War and we could fight at Estrella. We just couldn't fight at home. In fact, I didn't turn 18 till I was in boot camp. So I left Caid right after high school, and I didn't actually fight in my first real tournament as an authorized fighter until I got to Drachenwald in late 86.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's really genius, though.
Yeah. And then
fight the system.
I got wounded in the service, and after bouncing around for a while, I ended up back home down in Caid. But it was probably 90, maybe late 89, 90 before I started fighting again. A lot of physical therapy. And in 2000, I moved up to the West, and I was knighted in 2003. And the rest is pretty much history. I picked up a pelican along the way and was made a baron of the court. Just around member of the Fellowship of the Argent Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's how I've always known you.
Spent a lot of time on the warfield. Yeah, I've been an angel longer than I've been a knight.
There's worse things. Absolutely worse things. I mean, they're a fantastic group of guys. Like, I'm very honored to be able to go among them and just, I haven't made them mad yet.
Yep, they're my family. So so that's, that's pretty much it. I've got, after all these long years, I've got one squire. I don't have any proteges, and here we are.
That's awesome. Shay, that's for you. Sorry, Shay is a gentleman in the comments saying, was her ex-ly even born then? Are you fucking high? God, why would you say that? Holy shit, I hope he whoops your ass. All right. Well, Baron Kazimir, before I get to Conall, I think I can speak for a lot of us. Thank you very much for our freedom and what you do. So
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Sir Kaz, I have not met you before. I know Conall. Obviously, we live here in the West. I'm interested. How about you? What's your story?
So I started playing in SCA, I think it was 89. And at that time, I was out in Meridies, or what then was Meridies. I was in North Louisiana. So I went to my first event. It was probably 100-person event, maybe. My second event was Penzic 19. So
you glanced at it and went, I could do this, and then just jumped right in.
Yeah.
That's a good way to go.
So yeah, I played in the SCA for a number of years. About the mid-90s, I left the SCA for quite a good stint of time, and then came back. At that time, I was living down in Arizona in Aidenville. Started playing summer of 2006 again, and then took my Squires belt at 2007 Estrella and was knighted 2011 Estrella, same day on Saturday Estrella.
Nice. Okay. So you were what do they call those? A war knight, a battlefield knighting. Is that what they call those?
Field knight.
Field knight. That's right. There's a term for those, and I've seen them. So, all right. So how do you gentlemen know each other then? Because Kaz was very excited. He asked specifically for you, Conall, not to, I don't know if you saw that bus coming by, Kaz, but it did come by.
He knows.
You want to tell it, Kaz?
I'm hoping this has a terribly embarrassing story behind it.
You can tell it, and I will fill in. It's pretty.
So, for years, I was friends with Duke Man and Duchess Katerina Katie when I lived down in Caid, and they were close to my house down there, and we remained friends forever. I mean, Estrella was essentially our backyard growing up, and man was having a lineage tournament in his encampment, and he had all the knights who came out of his line, and all their squires and the knights that had come from them, and I was invited to fight, and that was a huge honor. And Kaz was a squire. Quite a few of the younger knights were still squires at that tournament. And that's when I met Kaz the first time.
For sure.
And we got acquainted, and we just stayed in contact. I mean, I think the biggest thing that has extended friendships now beyond going to foreign wars, or those of us who'd been lucky enough to travel in our lifetime, is social media.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Facebook in particular, for all its foibles, has really been a way for people to keep in touch, stay close, develop friendships. And so over the years, Kaz and I have talked on the regular quite a bit. A lot of other what's the word I'm looking for? Shared interest outside the SCA. And So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I basically, other than his time in Meridies, I've known Kaz since he really came on the scene.
Yep. For sure. I didn't think about that, but yeah. I just had one thing to add to that story. That lineage tournament, wasn't it you that won?
Yes, I won.
So
thank you very much.
So this was one of my first like really big encampments to be involved with, and like honestly, it was my first Australia. If we're gonna, so being at Man and Katie's encampment and getting to fight in this lineage tournament was a huge thing for me as well. And I remember seeing this guy, and I'm like, I gotta know who that is. I knew from the start that we would be good and fast friends for sure. But a lot of my inspiration and my ideals as far as chivalry, I owe to this man. He is a great inspiration.
I can agree with that.
Thanks, buddy.
For sure.
Very much. So you guys have a long standing of getting togethers at wars, things of that nature. And it sounds like you both have moved in different kingdoms. Oh, hi, Fergus. You guys have moved in different kingdoms a lot, correct? And so I've heard Kaid, Artemisia now is where you are.
Correct.
And so do you guys like figure out which wars you're going to so you can hang out again, tell stories, I assume?
Honestly,
where's the world gotten you?
Honestly, a lot of that is happenstance. I mean, for a long time we saw each other on the regular. Estrella had the big hiccup, and since then I'd only been back a couple times. The biggest thing for me, and this may sound trite, but after 40 years, I'm at a bit of a crossroads in the SCA where I'm trying to find the time to still sneak away for a weekend and enjoy myself. But I've been hyper focused on work. I'd like to retire in 8 years if the cards align. And so work has sort of rolled over and taken a huge chunk of my life from me. And gained a little weight, and my bad leg is sort of caught up to me a bit. So I haven't been fighting much, although I hope to remedy that at least on the war field.
I was going to say, I've seen some, what are they like? It's like a turquoise color made by Ivan. Didn't you have some arms made recently? God, they were pretty.
I have new armor, and as soon as the new Jupon needs to have the sleeves readjusted, once I get the new Jupon back, we'll do all the fit and finish for the arm harness, and I'll essentially have a new kit with the exception of my bassinet. So
sweet. I look forward to that. Good God. So I heard earlier between the conversation before we started, mention of Dungal. Was he your knight, Kaz?
Yes, Dungal was
okay. Mine. He was your knight. Okay, that's really cool. Conall, I don't know who your knight was.
I was a squire back in the early to mid 90s, and my knight was Sir David Morgan of Clymorgan. He was the third prince of Drachenwald back in the early 80s. Wow. Well, it was all military guys at the time, and and David was stationed in Europe with his wife. And somewhere in the mid 90s, he moved up to Ontario, and we just came to a mutual agreement that there wasn't really anything to be gained in our relationship via long distance. And so I gave my belt back. And, I was, I guess you'd call it a senior man at arms in Duke John's household down in Caid. Mostly they just referred to me as a bully boy. So
interesting terminology.
Yeah. I was rough and tumble as a man at arms in our old household buildup. I was in service to the lady of the house, Duchess Canewin. And so good-natured rivalry between the men at arms and the squires. But
that's an idea.
After our house broke up, I just knocked around. I was pretty much on my own, and hooked up with the Angels sometime after 30 year. I was still down in Caid. I was dating one of Ob's exes. And that's what brought me in contact with the West. And then I moved up here, and the rest is history.
Oh. So Kaz, I don't know much about Conall from a knight standpoint. I know more as the Laurel. Did you get a little bit of that as well? Did you learn a little bit of cool armoring from him thanks to that?
So
as he was your knight?
So to be honest, Conall tried to impart metalworking to me, and not to sound awful, but I should not ever touch hammers.
It's not for everybody yet. I'm good on you for admitting that. I have noticed that there's quite a lot of fighters out there like, hey, I can hit this normally with a piece of rattan. I should be able to fix this, and I totally can. When in truth, you shouldn't. So good on you for admitting your faults, man. Good on you.
I'm allowed to run the kick hammer, cut stuff out on the shear, stuff like that.
The grunt work.
Yeah, I can't do any hammering of anything. No, that is not my forte. However, I do remember Conall helping me create the one and only helm I have ever finished up, and that was a lot more him than me. But that helm is still in use right now with one of my good friends.
Oh, nice. Okay,
that's cool.
Did you at least hold it while he was hammering?
I put it together. I just didn't put it together well.
So we'll gloss over that. You did a lot of good job. You put a lot of time and energy into that helm.
But Conall was always very focused on the artistic side as well. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, a lot of the knights that were around when I was coming up in Aidenbelt were all Laurels, So it's not shocking that was a big focal point for all of us, or at least what I remember what it was like being a squire.
Well, that actually kind of leads us into our next question. What was that like? Was there anything as a squire that you wish to impart on the squires nowadays? That's kind of what this is all about, is getting to know you guys. What was it like for you guys growing up? Because we kind of get the, I was just naturally good. No, I think we all started off at a couple of bad licks. So what have you learned from that? What do you want to impart on us as the younger generation and the hard-headed ones, I guess? Either, who wants to take this one? Kaz, you answered last. Conall, would you like it?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing is that any sort of natural ability that you might have aside, it's all about helmet time. hands down, it's helmet time. And it's not just practice. It's fighting at tournaments, fighting at wars, and practice in between. It's a lot harder for to use you as an example. Excellency, you are a working woman. You have a child. You've got a house that you maintain. You're coming into your own at a time where you have to balance a lot of things that a great many of us didn't have to do.
Yeah.
I started out as a teenager and I was single. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. So all I did was work and drive to every practice I could find. And I practiced 2, maybe 3 days a week sometimes, depending on where I wanted to drive, and fought at tournaments on Saturday because Caid, especially when I was fighting again in the 90s, Caid, they're a day event kingdom. And so Saturdays were for tournaments. And on Sunday, Gildenholt had a war practice. So 4 war practices a month, tournaments as many weekends as I could possibly get in. And I drove everywhere. I would drive out to tournaments in Vegas, go out to Starkoffen. I would go to Barons War. I would go to Estrella, the old West Caid War. And so also a benefit of growing up in Caid, it's a kingdom that I could get from end to end in a relatively short amount of driving. So I went everywhere I could to fight. And that's sort of how I learned. As far as being a squire and having duties to a knight or a household, the running joke especially among the old timers down in Caid, is that I was Kate's squire. I was David's wife's squire.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do more things for her than I had to do for him. For him, I just had to fight. And I made him a new shield and a new sword every once in a while. But his armor was all low profile. I didn't have to really maintain that. And so it was all about fighting.
So okay. So that makes a lot more sense in that case, where it was, you had tasks. You had tasks as from the lady of the household.
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest one was setting up the camp. I had a lot of freedom, and I would go down to events like Potrero, and I would get in on Friday night, or I would get to an event early on Saturday, and I would set up the camp. Mm-hmm. And if we were camping, if it was a camping event, I would set up their tent and put all their shit in there. And then by the time they rolled in, I had most of my duties done.
You were free to go and create havoc.
Yeah. So a lot of my duty to the house was on the back end.
That makes sense. Kaz, what about you?
When I was a squire, I can say that being squire to Conall, one of the best things about that was when Conall took me on, as far as fighting goes, he opened the door for me in a lot of places. Not to say that I have ever shied away from tracking somebody down that I wanted to learn something from, but Conall facilitated a lot of communication with people. But there was also a certain level of effort on my part as well. But with that being said, the other great thing about my night, when we were starting off, and I had just taken a belt from Conall, he was very much a fighter, and I think that he was very good place in his fighting, but having to explain it to someone that didn't have a whole lot of depth from the start, we had to develop this level of communication, because he's one of these guys who's like, what? And he's just very instinctive. And hasn't had to impart that before, right? And so going through the process of developing that understanding in each other and being able to talk the same language, that took a little while for sure. And now, me being a knight and having to do that, I have a different level of appreciation for what he was doing at the time. I definitely have a level of understanding that only comes through certain pathways. And sometimes you can have someone speak to you about trying to do a thing or execute a technique in such a manner and not get it at all, and then have somebody come up and go, oh, you see what they're saying is this, and it's like they're speaking a different language, and then now you have somebody come up and translate. So after my being knighted for a little while and getting the experience of you, as soon as you put on a white belt, it seems like everybody wants to know what's going on and wants to have a little bit of that knowledge, right? So as I was a new knight, having to do this with different people and understand where they're at and how to communicate with them, man, that was enlightening. But a lot of that I can contribute to Conall in particular.
That's kind of good to know, though, that, you know, even if you have a difficult time how do I put that? Translating your knight speak into your own, it doesn't mean that there is a hole in the fighting or in the partnership. It just means you have to learn with each other, much like most relationships of any capacity. You have to learn how to work with one another and find something that works for both of you. And you'll still get something out of it. He'll still get something out of it, I imagine. So it works great that way. That's reassuring to know, I imagine, for a lot of people. And
me coming up in Aidenveld before I got knighted, I was going to practices and probably at least 3 a week. And then, because we had Wednesday night, we had Thursday night in Twin Moons, and then typically I would do a practice at Duke Arthur's on Sunday, if there wasn't an event. And one of the other great things about being Squire to Conall is we're constantly traveling. We're constantly going to events. And being part of that, being along for the ride, helping out, man, that was huge exposure. And, you know, we were traveling all over the place. So the quality of fight and the variety of fight was instrumental, I would say, in my...
Yeah. That's neat. That's really awesome.
I see you, Alfred Carlisle, in your old school comments down there.
Oh, I wouldn't call them old school. I would call them full on, like, throwing the gauntlet. Some of the shit he's been saying. I wasn't sure if, like, sometimes when we tag the comments for them to pop up, it can be kind of distracting. But there were a couple of where I'm like this one. Like,
well,
show that.
Alfred's been a knight for 100 years.
Right? I'm well aware. I swear to God, that man.
Alfred's, you know, number one.
And we have the Jesse Hammond.
Yes.
Yeah, what's up, Oz?
I was super excited to see him. Clearly, you guys have brought out some great people. We have
Thorfinn.
Oz. I saw Thorfinn as well. I just saw, where is he? Oh, there's Fergus. We had Fergus popping up, which is always a nice thing to see.
Nice.
And yes, we did see our very own Thorfinn. What brings you guys coming back to the SCA? You've moved a lot. You've had some difficulties in your lives that have taken you away from the SCA for a time, and then you've managed to find your way back. What was it that brought you back and keeps you coming? I mean, mundane world aside.
I will jump in on this.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Family. Brotherhood.
That's good.
There is nothing like the people in this game. You can't find family like that.
I agree. Can't complain. Oh, I imagine Conall fellowship is very important to you.
Well, it is. And really, I've been in the SCA for such a long time, and I started at such a young age that even my family started to recognize Conall. My 21st birthday cake that my grandmother made had both my names on it, Todd and Conall.
Oh, that's cool.
And honestly, other than being actively deployed, and for a time right after I got wounded and I was rehabbing, I've only ever stepped away from the SCA for a couple of years, all told. The toughest part for me, I think, was after I got injured. The depression was pretty heavy, and an escape for me was to go drink. So I was working at the recruiting station at the time. We would get off work and we'd go down to the bar and we'd get drunk and we'd get in a fight. I wouldn't say it's a high point in my life, but it was my SCA friends who said, "Hey man, you're going to hell in a handbasket really fast, and your life is in a spiral." And so those friends of mine who were in the SCA were the ones who pulled me out of that funk. Didn't have many friends outside the SCA. Even attempted or tried dating outside the SCA, and that didn't come to much, because everything it talked about, everything we did, was somehow related to the SCA. So, yeah, family, and these days, really, since the early 2000s, maybe even a bit before that, it's been the Angels. We've had some rough times, our fellowship, and without each other, I don't know. I don't know that we would have gotten over a couple of the humps. So.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Totally fair. Kaz, what about you?
The family piece of this, like my SCA family, they're some of the people that I met early on. And like I said, I left the SCA about the mid-90s and then took a big break. And what brought me back, I have a great example of this, is my old squire brother. When I was there in Meridies then, was now Glenavon, Sir Gathan, I lost my parents, and they came out of the woodwork, and he was my old squire brother when I was living out there, and he came up to me and he said, "Hey, the SCA is everywhere. There will be good people out there in Arizona as well." And so he's like, you have unfinished business. And he gave me the talking to, because now he's the knight and I'm still nothing. And he's like, "Hey, go out there and do the thing. Go be a knight." And that's when I came home in summer 2006, went out and went to a local practice, saw Dongal, and I was all, that one. And but a lot of the people, like His Excellency, Thorfinn, all these guys, a lot of the angels, they're like family to me.
Mm-hmm.
My closest friends are my SCA family. Like,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. No, here in the West, I mean, we know you guys. We know who the angels are, and I don't want to even say they're like the boogeyman. That's not the correct term, but they are the history. A lot of stories begin and end with the angels, and it's always really neat to be able to see them either on the field or in person. I love the camaraderie that they have, and I completely agree with you, Kaz. They are just a group to admire, very, very much admire. They're really neat to hear, and especially when they start railing on each other. Oh my God, they get mean. Holy shit. We're actually about halfway through. I did see a couple of questions. I'm going to do this one because I know it's going to be fast and quick.
Sure.
Strap shield or punch shield? Are you fucking kidding me? That's from our own John. I don't even know.
Strapped.
Thank you very much. Okay, so wait, on that, Conall, since you are an angel, you guys are kind of like a war group. Would you say that you're more of a war knight or a tournament knight?
For a long time, it was a little bit of both. I think if I really made any inroads as a knight, it was probably on the warfield. But I spent a lot of time. I mean, West Coast is tournament central, and that's
yes.
It's all about fighting in tournaments. But like Kaz and Oz and Alfred of Carlisle and Thorfinn, we grew up going to wars. That's Kit, go away, Kit, with your
Kitty, you're a lefty. You don't get to speak in this. You're weird as it begins with. You're a lefty.
But so I think the wars brought us together, and in a lot of ways, the warfield is where you, at least in my opinion, is where you make your name. Tournaments are all gauged on winning and losing. You can do well in tournaments, and you can have good fights and still lose, but all people see who weren't there is a piece of paper that has W's and L's.
Right.
The warfield allows you to fight hard, to succeed and fail, and to continue to make a name for yourself. So if there was a question at the root there, I would definitely say that I'm a bit more of a war knight, and my preference is war, but I grew up on the list field, so that's the West Coast mentality.
I feel like I started with war, and now I'm primarily tournament. Now, Kaz, I'm curious about your answer, considering, from my knowledge, and it might not be very vast, Aidenfeld is a very war heavy. I'm not sure about Artemisia. So what would you think?
So I spent 4 years down in Aidenfeld, almost 5. It was very war centric. There were a lot of tournaments. I consider myself a tourney knight, but absolutely you have to be proficient. And as far as chivalry goes and that path, there is ample opportunity on the war field to set yourself apart and to show yourself proficient as a leader. That being said, I love the tourney. I love the tourney. Tournaments I live for. But like I said, I came up in Aidenfeld, so we spend a great deal of time focused around war, for sure.
Interesting. Okay. Makes sense. What was the other question? Although I'm going to ask at some point, either during the show or after the show, dying to know what makes your shields, like, apparently the Gucci's of shields, because I'm constantly trying to learn shields because I love strapped, for what? It was a phrasing moment. I'm trying to constantly better my shield, so I'm curious what you do. Okay, Shay, that is a stupid question. What is your favorite war and why is it golf? Not everybody likes to breathe water, sweetie. Not everybody does. I'm a water person. I had a really hard time with it. Okay, never mind. And they're having a huge conversation in the chat about shields that I'm not going to go into.
Never been to Gulf Wars.
Really?
Yep. When I was stationed down at Fort Benning, I went down to Fool's War in Meridies, and that was long before even the first Gulf War. But I've never been to Gulf.
Really? Okay. So wait. With that in mind, what is your most favorite favorite event? Doesn't matter if it's a war or if it's just something we have all the time. What's yours? Cast, I think.
For me,
Shay, why don't you just end up coming to more wars and get out of Gulf?
Sorry. For the money, it's hard to beat Great Western War. It's just.
Are you coming this year?
We're not sure yet.
Oh God! Please tell me you're going to come and I get to see you on the pickup.
It's such a great place to have an event. Really, timing of the year. It's really good weather. Usually, it's hard to beat. I love Estrella, but the weather sometimes can be tough. So, I think Great Western beats it out just with the site and the timing and everything.
I mean, to be fair, if you're from Aidenfeld, 90 to 105 degree fighting weather is like, oh my God, this is 70 degrees. This is balmy.
Yeah.
I could do this all day. There's no problem with it. But yeah, Great Western, I have to admit, it's one of my favorites.
But I have been to Gulf, and I want to go to Kal-bardr, and why am I spacing on the
Lily's War?
Lily's. I've always wanted to go to Lily's War.
Ditto, very much so. But I also just want to see all the different wars because they're all different. They're all different and they're all interesting. Conall, what about you?
So, I think it runs on a curve.
Hi, Connor.
I think for the longest time, it was Estrella hands down. But then I spent a number of years going to Lily's War from about 2015 25th year celebration, probably for a solid 10 years running. One of my best friends, Sir Halidar, lives in Kal-bardr. And so I would say at the peak, Lily's was or is probably my favorite war. And these days followed closely by West Ontario, mostly because that site, hands down, weather-wise, site-wise, it was such a beautiful site.
Yeah.
You know, I do, however, long for the days of a war being a week long. You know, Estrella and Lily's were always so fantastic because you were there for so long. You know, even Great Western War, hit and miss, you know, maybe you'll get a week out of it. On-tier West War is rarely a week these days. But yeah, I would say growing up, Estrella, hands down. After I got out of the Army, Lily's War, and now, at least site-wise and fighting-wise, West Ontario.
And it really helps that it's a pretty site. I don't know. I know with Estrella now becoming War of the Phoenix, because it has. I mean, it's just changed its branding. Really, it feels like. I understand it's supposed to be a brand new thing, and we won't get into that. But I enjoyed Estrella with the weird weather systems. Kaz, I liked it when it poured. What, 4 years ago? I thought that was the most amazing event I've ever been to in my life. Was when it was no fighting, funnily enough, and just chaos, pure chaos. I thought that was fantastic. Best memories were made there because everybody's like, well, this sucks. We have to make it good no matter what. So, yeah, Lily's, remind me, where is Lily's?
Kansas City. In Kal-bardr.
Yeah, that's a someday. Woo, jeez.
I heard it's a huge barbecue and an SCA event breaks out.
It is.
That is the best description ever. Missouri. Oh, fuck.
Kal-bardr is a giant family, more so than many other kingdoms, which, you know, we've all sort of hunkered down in our households. And yeah, we go out and we wander around and we have a good time. But we're definitely more group oriented here on the West Coast. Kal-bardr is a giant free for all. Everywhere you go, there's singing and music. The fighting's good. The tournaments are good. And for the last long handful of years, you take off your armor and you go jump in the lake. So
okay. I'm sold right there. That's enough for me. I'm fucking gone. I'm doing it. Here, I just thought of a question. I don't know where it came from out of nowhere. We're gonna get into the awkward questions. What's been the hardest part about becoming knights? I mean, this sounds weird. You guys were knighted within the time frame that I've been in the SCA, and I've learned a shit ton from that time. So, what's been the hardest part about being knights? Let's get honest. Who wants to step on? Who wants to deal with that one?
Okay. So as a knight, and I guess really as any other peer, you're always on. You're visible. Got a big white belt around your waist. You got chains around your neck. And when you open your mouth, people stop. People stop and listen. Mm-hmm. So the reality of it is as a knight is that you're always on. And so everything you do, everything you say, somebody is watching. And so it's relatively tough to kind of unwind and let it all hang out. I mean, you can be relaxed, but the reality of it is if somebody asks you a question, there's somebody else who's listening. So I think that the toughest part about being a knight is that you're always on.
Mm. Do you think that you've had to rein in a lot of your own comments due to that nature?
I'm not so good at that.
Oh, I think you are. I think you very much are. You handle yourself very well in a way that you can give your input, and it's very well put.
Well, and let's face it, we're supposed to be the leaders. We're supposed to be the makers of manners.
Ooh, I like that. Makers of manners.
This isn't the military where you can go out back and settle it behind the woodshed, which I'm not at all opposed to that. But
he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
But in general, we are supposed to help settle issues. We are both when utilized by the crown, the knights, we are both justice and mercy. And so you have to temper that. You can't be the mercy knight all the time. Nothing gets handled that way. But in the same vein, you can't be the justice knight all the time, because not everything can be fixed with the heavy hand. So it's a mix, justice and mercy. It's temperance would be a good way to describe it.
Well said. Very well said. Kaz, want to follow that?
Ditto.
No. Sorry, man. I wouldn't want to follow that. That was very well said, and that's I've always appreciated about him.
Conall was very much on the mark there. The only thing I can say, I tell everybody this is a piece of advice I always talk about in the vigil of anyone that I visit. I share with them the fact that no bad days. Once you become a peer, regardless of whether it is night, or all have to learn, and this applies to everyone, you have to understand that you don't get a bad day anymore. Someone is going to look at you, and you're going to be the first peer or first knight they see. Be worthy of that moment.
Yep.
Well said as well. Can we get that on a shirt, please? A shirt, a bumper sticker, something where we can hit people with it. Oh, wait, that's a sword. I agree.
But that applies to everyone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. 100%.
And, we're the guardians of that dream. That first time that somebody rolls in and sees what we're doing, that moment, we're safeguarding that singular moment.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. I consider all of the peers to be equal, but if you took a step back and looked in a long lens, the knights stand out, and it's just the way the game grew up. We had the most visible accoutrement, and so those were the ones who were pointed out. And So again, it just goes back to always being on, or as Kaz said, no bad days. At least in public, you got to have a game face to be a peer of any stripe, and you know that as well. Being royalty, you have to have a game face that you present, because everybody looks to you for inspiration, for guidance, and they don't care that you've had a shitty week at work, or that your kids are acting up, or that your arthritis is bugging you. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
So you have to put that all in your back pocket, and you have to put on your game face.
Yeah. I don't want to get into politics necessarily, but I don't want to say that that's been kind of lost lately, but it feels like there is a little bit of the dream that's been kind of tarnished a little bit lately, and I hope we get back to it. Because you're right. Everybody knows what a knight is. We've read about it. We see it in movies. We've all grown up. I never knew about pelicans and laurels until I got into the SCA, and now I see the pinnacle that they are. But everybody new to the SCA who's just coming by and walking by, they know immediately what a knight is. They know that word, but not a pelican or a laurel. But when they find out about it, they now see what they can achieve. And again, do you want to achieve that, or do you want to stay away from that peerage? So, God, I hope I might have just, shot myself for that, but hopefully not. Ooh, scary. I think, we're getting close to the end. I know there's been a lot of other questions that I would love to ask, especially you guys in the comments. I'm seeing a lot of people that I don't normally get to see. So, you guys brought some people out of the woodwork, which I'm very, very thankful of, to come and watch the show. So thank you very much for that. They're a lot more snarky in the comments than they usually are. You guys need to tone it the fuck down, especially earlier when you guys were like, oh yeah, you can totally settle things outside, in fighting, up behind the shed, like Conall was saying. You can't do that. At least then it was two Marines going at it, and they at least have the same training. This is not the same fucking case here. Jesus.
You can't get caught doing that.
This is true. Please, for the love of God, no. Oh my God. Is there anything you guys would like to comment on? Like anything you guys want to see change in the SCA that you might have some insight that maybe not other people have thought about? That's the other thing, is we want to get your guys' opinions out there, and to make you known to the other squires of the world. Like what is it that you're hoping to achieve as knights of the society, pelicans of the society, barons of the society? Is there something that you are willing to try? Connor, shut up. Jeez. Sorry. Grand Knight.
Yep. I think, if anything, it's
a hard question.
The older I get is trying to hold myself as an exemplar, thinking about what I want to say, and making sometimes the hard decision to stand up and say what I feel needs to be said at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. We rely on the good grace of everybody. Everybody around you makes you feel better. But sometimes you have to make the hard choice to say a thing that is not popular, that's but sometimes needs to be said. And if we as peers don't say it, no one's going to. But as far as if there's anything that I would like to see change, it would be moving back to a live interaction in the SCA, and moving somewhat away from social media, although it's extremely helpful It can be a good recruitment tool. It certainly is a way for us to interact over great distances. Forums like Ask the Knight and Coach's Corner, between two peers, all those are fantastic forums, but those are sidelines. They're one-offs. I would love to see us get back to the core of the SCA, which was or is the tournament. It's the weekend. It's the war. And that's a group effort. Social media is easy. You can throw a tunic on, sit in a chair.
Yes.
But
I find this so much more uncomfortable, honestly, than being out in the open, honestly.
But I think that it also it's a dangerous bully pulpit because it's safe, right?
Yes, and that's exactly what I was going to say.
I can close this and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But what the biggest thing that we've always done is we've settled our differences, or tried to face. That's not always easy and not always the case. But social media has certainly made it easy for people to run off at the mouth, for people to just make mistakes, right? You get heated and there's no one there to temper you. So you just type your response and away you go.
You're safe behind a screen without having to deal with the animosity to your face.
There's less accountability. So I see you, Alfred. Just because you don't understand computers doesn't mean that ESCA is terrible.
No, I agree with you absolutely. We do have the ability. I would never probably get to speak to Kaz until I met him on the pickup field and was like, hey, would you mind doing a couple of bouts? And then we might never even talk again. But here I actually get to sit and chit chat with him and get to know him in a way. Other people from other kingdoms get to know you guys. But then there's the bad side of it, of the keep. I don't know if keyboard warrior is an okay thing to say, but it is I can say what I want and I can walk away when I want, and I can be like in the movies where I have said this really awesome thing and then I'm walking away. Well, that's not a real thing. You can't honestly do that in the real world, because that person's going to walk behind you and go, no, we're not done. I get to say my piece. It almost seems like communication's both improved and backfired. So I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, the internet is certainly Occam's razor. There's
yeah,
and it's a tough thing.
Kaz, any input on that? Anything of your own? Because that's true.
In regards to if I could see some type of change in the SCA, I think it would probably be twofold. Coming out of pandemic and everything now, it's great to be able to do in-person things and have in-person events and get back to the SCA like it was, because while it is great to stay in touch with folks via Zoom and have conversations through the internet, it's just not the same sharing moment kind of thing that we have with events. And so if I could see any kind of change, or want to see a particular kind of change, I would say more events, more things going on. I know a lot of things have fallen by the wayside and kind of fizzled out. Whether that's from, the site just not being open anymore, or there not being enough people in a locality to have events and support events. I would love to see more events going on, and we travel, like we're lucky. We get around and we're kind of centrally located to a lot of stuff. So, I think being able to run over to Ontier or make it down to Gellir or Edenveld or is super easy. I have an awful secret. I've never made a West Kingdom event.
If it makes you feel any better, I've never been to any other kingdom. But so that, to me, I think you should come to a West Kingdom one because obviously, I'm not going to say obviously, but they're pretty awesome. I'm not going to say they're the best, but they're pretty awesome.
If I could say anything, I just want to be selfish and have more events.
That's a good thing. And I think for myself and for several other knights that I know, we got to keep our hand in. And I've been bad about this. I haven't been fighting much in the last few years. And that's on me. The core of what we do as knights is fight. And we pass on what we've learned, and we continue to strive to be better and to learn new things. But if we're not fighting, or at least coming out to train, we're not living up to our responsibility as knights.
Thank you. I didn't have to say it. I wasn't going to say it because sounds much prettier coming from you, Conall. You have the belt and chain that gets to be able to say that. And it's exactly true. Even if you can't fight anymore due to physical limitations, anything like aging, you guys are still heroes to us who've known you during the time that you were fighting. There's still stories of you when you were still fighting. This is to everybody in the comments, all of you knights out there. Even if you can't fight anymore, still come out, because while there might be a new generation coming in, you are the generation that is still here. So you can either make it that we want to be the next generation, or you can make it that, why do we want to be like them? They get to a certain age and they crap out. This isn't a long-term event or a long-term hobby, and this should be a long-term hobby. I totally want to be in my 70s still fighting.
Hey,
I won't.
To be clear, just to clarify, I ain't 19, but I ain't done by a damn sight.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly. So, Connor's question is, so when are you coming to practice? Because I suppose he's right. You don't have to be in armor to go to practice. And Connor is a great advocate for golf tube fighting. But for the love of God, get this. You need this when you're fighting with Connor and golf tubes. I can attest to this.
I know that my brother's question is directed squarely at me.
I was gonna say, I don't think that's me. I hope it's not.
Is this Conall?
So I would love to say that I'm gonna make a weekday practice, but I don't see that in the foreseeable future, just because of the schedule that I keep. But I will say this, Connor, I'll try to get out to Thorfinn's practice on a Sunday. I'll start with once a month, see if I can't increase my time, and then maybe if we put together another weekend practice, even if I'm not in armor, I'll come out and help train.
I was gonna say, even if you don't fight, Conall, go there, sit with a beer. Knowing you, after that first practice of you just watching, you're gonna start getting geared up of, I want to hit something. I'm pretty sure you're gonna want to start hitting something again. If you even go to a practice just to sit and catcall. I think Kaz could probably agree with me that we can get you into this. We have a lot of people, even if you don't fight.
You're welcome to come visit.
Think about that. You go all the way that distance, and you don't even so much as pick up a stick of rattan. I guarantee you'll regret it.
Well, you're close enough, Kaz. I was hoping to get out for a visit with Sean. Unfortunately, probably not this year, but early next year. And so if I end up heading out that way, I'll definitely hit you up. I know that's well within your range of motion.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. All right, Kaz. Now you know what your objective is for the next at least 6 months.
Thanks.
That's on you. That is so not me. That's not my job. I only nag certain people. All right. Thank you guys so very, very much for coming on tonight. It's been wonderful to be able to sit and chat with you guys. Kaz, I super hope in the future that you and I get to meet in person. We get to exchange sticks, and I still have questions regarding your shields. Conall, I greatly, greatly hope that we get to see you at more events. I love listening to your stories, and bring out more of the angels. I'm still meeting new ones, it seems, every time. We'd love to see you at a Crapeau just to come out and support. I know your schedule is really difficult, though, so I understand that as well.
I've wanted to make Crapeau for ages now.
Yeah.
We will make this happen. Dude, if you come out to Great Western.
Yeah. Or if you're ever just coming out west and you decide that you're going to come a couple days early toward the end of the month, Kaz, if you're gonna show, I'll just take a day off work and
fuck, it's just a glitter we're doing all the time.
I mean, as Connor Vison and Thorfinn can tell you, when we were a bit younger, and hell, Connor and Thorfinn are still doing it, we would make the long ass drive up to Calusa on a work night, stay out all night, and then roll back to work the next day.
Oh, see, even Kith is talking about it. Connor, I don't think it's this Thursday. I think it's the 31st. And please correct me right fucking now, because I have to be there. So you have to give me the right date. I'd be very pissed off. Anyways, before I forget, and yes, Kaz, please, let's totally get. What are we on now, Conall? 320th or so?
Crapeau?
I said this Thursday. Why is it? Sorry, we'll come back to that. Yes. What is the Crapeau? Do you happen to know off the top of your head? Because I don't quite recall. I want to say it was like 323rd.
I don't know. Connor, do you?
329.
329.
So in a couple more months, okay, maybe like a year or two, they'll be at 350. Come for the 350th. That gives you time to plan. Shit.
Cool.
Any Crapeau, man. It's in general, it's the last Thursday of the month. You get out, and we'll make sure you get there, and we'll bring folks out.
For those of you curious about what we're talking about, Crapeau is a once monthly tournament here in the West that happens on the last Thursday of every month. Always welcome to anybody who, it's your first day in armor, or if you've been fighting for buku years, you come out and it gives you the opportunity to learn how to fight in tournaments, to speak. It is an amazing tradition started by the Fellowship of the Angels. Highly recommend it. It is an amazing learning opportunity. Please, please, please come out.
Yep. Connor just weighed in, so it is on the 31st. So we got another week, but a bunch of people are weighing in. Maybe mark that another year, 20 months or so, and look for Viva le Crapeau. Look for the 350th. If we can get Fergus to come home, and it'd be great if Oz came out, so let's make it a date.
All right, Conall, you get your angels together. Get them on that. Get them on it to start yelling about it now, and hope to God another fucking pandemic doesn't ruin another anniversary of that. Although Kaz, the Thursday before Great Western is when it's going to happen. And on that note, we're going to end it. I really want him to come. I want him to come out to both Great Western, and also I think everybody should come out to Crapeau, especially for those who are coming down for Great Western. Come early. Anywho, again, thank you guys so very much for enlightening us and for all of this information. What the fuck? Alfred, fuck off.
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And fine, Shay. I will ask the very quick question, but I am pretty sure I would want both of these guys on my zombie squad. One of my favorite questions to ask on Ask the Knights, and the very last question is, how has the SCA prepared you for the zombie apocalypse? Because I think it's the funniest goddamn question. And we always have different answers, not just hitting people with sticks, but what do we got?
Well, being able, so the big one, and I'm a bit of a cheat with the military background. But other than being able to hit something with a stick or a sword or a spear, all the usual shit you'd think about, we can subsist off the grid better than most.
Thank you. Nobody's ever mentioned that.
Society, I mean, if zombies go the way of Walking Dead, society's going to fall the fuck apart. And so those of us who've, camped out of a bag, we could subsist. We can do things much like the Boy Scouts. We can do things that people have forgotten how to do. We can make fucking fire. I mean,
and if we don't know how, there is somebody within our group that can figure it out or has done the research. Thank you, Laurels.
Yep.
I agree. And Connor, I fucking did ask you that question. Kaz?
So the SCA has provided me a proficiency with an axe, and axes never go click.
I was really enjoying my part. That caught me off guard for a second. That was a great answer. Thank you. But they have that hook. They have that beard. What if that gets stuck in a clavicle or something?
Tear it out.
No. Then you've made a mistake.
Yeah.
I've always thought about that in the movies where it's like they have these axes and I'm like, but okay, A, you don't know how to swing that, and B, what happened? What is your reaction if it hits, like it hooks into that clavicle and now you can't get it back out? I know I do not have, that's why I'm doing range.
And the reality of it is that a stick will suffice.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh God, yeah.
A baseball bat, stick of rattan. You don't need to own a sword or own an axe or any of that shit. Those are all well and good, and I'll be honest, and I hope this doesn't piss off too many people, but most of the SCA guys I know, they probably couldn't hit edge on with a sword or an axe. They just couldn't, right?
Oh my fucking God, true?
We are masters of stick fighting.
Yes.
And yes, we put an edge on it. And some of them, like Connor Vison, and some others have gone and fought in Battle of Nations, which, it's a bit more of a push me, pull you. But the reality of it is that the majority of us probably couldn't achieve the same level of success with an actual live weapon.
I think that needs to become a new, not tournament thing, but like an end of the evening battle or a field list thing for all kingdoms, where it's bring out a couple of your old melons, things like that, and have swords be used to slice them in midair. And you would be surprised the number of them who actually can't do it. I think that'd be very interesting to see. All of a sudden, put up or shut up. This is exactly why I carry a stick of rattan with me whenever I go for walks or in my car, because I'm hoping to hit something with it. Thank you. Very good point. But the axe thing. So wait, does that mean that's your favorite war thing to use as axes then? Oh.
Yeah,
we can still be friends.
For me, it's a 7.5 foot polearm. Though I dabble in a great sword, and I can throw an axe around if I need to. But definitely on the warfield, great weapon's the way to go, hands down. No offense to any of you sword slingers out there, but great weapon is the way to go.
That's actually true. All right, we can easily have this kind of. This is why this is my favorite conversation, because you can really get into a person's nitty gritty on this, on their and how they view possible scenarios. Again, thank you guys so very much for all of your indulgence. I super appreciate it. Chat, you guys have been amazing, smart asses, and we love you for it. Please never change. And until we see you guys next time, next week, due to some scheduling situations, we have one more show happening next week. I'm going to butcher the fuck out of, well, it's Duke Kern and Sir Tarek. Do not ask me where they're from. I cannot recall.
Kern's.
You probably know them, don't you, Conall?
Trimaris.
Trimaris?
Is where Kern's from. If it's the same one I'm thinking of.
Trimaris both.
Yeah. Yep.
I want that ability. But yes, they will be next Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll put out reminders, and then we are going to be taking a break because September and early October is going to be unbelievably busy. So we are going to possibly be taking a break and revamping the show. So if you have any suggestions on future people you'd like to see get grilled, please shoot them our way, and we're hoping to get more and more people on here, not just knights, peers, all kinds, because
right on.
The more uncomfortable the merrier.
Well, sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Annora.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Kaz. Take care, man.
You too.
It's good to see you.